I'm going to resume our recording. Good morning, everyone who just signed on. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We're still admitting participants into the meeting, so give it a couple more minutes for everyone to join. It's good to see some new names and faces this morning. Let's see. I'm just going to give another minute or two for anyone still logging on before we get started. So. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I think most of our registered participants have logged in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kelly Bennett. I'm the Marketing and Event Manager for the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber, and we're happy to have you joining us. We're doing weekly webinars, and virtual coffee breaks are happening about bi-weekly, so we are really thankful for those of you who have signed on to join us. Help us spread the word on that, please. We are looking to stay connected with our members during this time. I know a lot of people are returning to the workforce, to their physical office locations, and our staff is slowly doing that. We are also looking forward to being able to meet in person again whenever that can happen. So before we get into the webinar, I'd like to do some housekeeping and announcements. Our staff members on today are Samantha Michalak. She's our Membership Engagement Manager. Sam handles helping members join the chamber and any questions that they have. Cheryl Gerald is our Operations Manager. She keeps us running, pays the bills, keeps the lights on, and is always extremely early for everything. You can count on her. Just real quick, we're running a couple of promotions. We have a Join Now, Pay Later program. So if companies want the added exposure of chamber membership and the benefits we provide, you can join now and not pay until September. So Samantha can help you with that. We have our exclusive member e-blast. Because of demand, we've added a Monday e-blast. So if you're interested in that opportunity, you know, we usually have about, excuse me, a 6-week wait for our e-blast, but now that's opened up. So if you're interested in emailing all of our chamber members, that email comes from the chamber itself, so I can help you with that. Upcoming events that we have next week on Tuesday, we have our Government Town Hall Part 2 with Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter and the Oakland County Director of Health and Human Services, Kathy Forsley, will be joining us to talk about their COVID response, what we can expect and how they plan to move forward. So I think that'll be really informative. And lastly, if you're interested in conducting one of these webinars with us, please let me know. I've been reaching out to some businesses, but we are looking for a lot of new opportunities. Our July calendar is pretty open at this time. So if you're interested in conducting a webinar with us, please let me know. With that, if you have any questions, there will be time at the end for that. You can also type things in the chat box and we'll monitor that as well, but we will have time for Q&A at the end. So with that, I'd like to welcome and thank our presenter today. Rachel Decker is the president of Detroit Philanthropy. She spent nearly 20 years in the nonprofit sector as an effective and strategic fundraising and foundation executive. Detroit Philanthropy founder and president Rachel Decker is passionate about helping others, making meaningful connections, solving problems, and most importantly, creating impact in our community. With the founding of Detroit Philanthropy, she turned that passion into a commitment to champion philanthropy throughout Metro Detroit as a philanthropic advisor, fundraiser, consultant, and speaker. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for having me, everyone.
Good morning.
Let me get back to the slides. Is that sharing? All right, can everyone see that? Yeah, okay, great.
Yes.
So good morning, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I know that these are incredibly challenging times for those of you in the nonprofit community. So I'm hoping to be able to provide a little bit of advice on how to keep your fundraising up and revenue coming in, even though fundraising can certainly be a challenge. So I am going to take just a couple minutes to tell you a little bit more about Detroit Philanthropy and what we do. Then we'll spend most of the time talking about ways to engage donors during times of crisis. There's plenty of time at the end for questions from you all, and then we'll just do a quick wrap up. Also, just a note that I will give Kelly these slides after we're done here today, so you guys don't have to scramble to write everything down. And I think Kelly is also recording too. So with that, Kelly touched a little bit on what I do, but Detroit Philanthropy's model is helping you help others. And we do that through two main ways. So the first is philanthropic advisory services for family foundations, socially minded companies, and just private individual philanthropists. So we work with them to help them be more strategic in how and who they give their philanthropic support to. And then the other way is through fundraising consultation. So we are a licensed professional fundraiser through the state of Michigan, and we provide strategic counsel and execution. So since I know most of you guys are nonprofits, just to talk a little bit more about that, this is sort of a process. We really work with you to develop very tailored fundraising plans, and then work with you to sort of plan, manage, and implement those to help you achieve your goals. Ultimately, with the goal of increasing your capacity by providing the skills and expertise needed to help with your fundraising efforts. So everything is very tailored. You know, I always get a lot of questions about like the model and how we operate. And it's really dependent on the organization's goals and how they are staffed up at the moment in terms of what level of support that they would need, because we do a lot more than just consult. So it's more than kind of telling you what to do. We actually sort of dive into the work with you and help in the execution. These are just some of the main areas that we focus our work on. And again, you know, it's all very dependent on what the organization is looking for. So with that, we'll talk about our topic today. Enough of my commercial, if you will. So really, you know, during these challenging times, it's very, you know, your operational needs have changed, right? Everyone's working differently, most likely. Fundraising has probably taken a bit of a hit, either because donors are having their own financial challenges, you're having to cancel events or switch to virtual. It's hard to get out and meet with donors one-on-one. So really kind of the first step of thinking through how to work differently, what I'm recommending is that folks put together sort of a mini case statement. Like any case statement, you're going to want to do two things, which is both explain the need and then talk about how folks can help you fill that gap. So with the need, I mean, again, as I mentioned, you're going to want to focus on how you are doing things differently. You know, did you have to switch your programs over to a virtual model? Obviously, there was probably some expense to that. Are you seeing an increased demand for your services because you're, you know, providing food to needy families, and we know that that It has really been an exasperated need throughout the community. So if you're seeing, sort of unprecedented client services being offered, to really be able to talk about that in a lot of detail. Also sort of knowing that we, are already 3 months into this. So being able to talk about some of your early outcomes, to put some hard numbers in there so that donors can really have a sense of what you've been doing and the impact that you've had on the community. And then to go along with that, you're going to want to have a budget that has some very concrete numbers in there. I always get a lot of questions about, should we say that we have a goal? We're reluctant because one, either that goal sounds really big and we're afraid we're going to turn donors off, or we just don't want to, kind of cap us out at a certain number. I mean, maybe we can fundraise beyond what that need is. So I do recommend that you're very transparent about that. I mean, again, donors want to see concrete information. And then this allows you a way to keep them updated and apprised of your benchmarks and how you're progressing and the ways that you're meeting that. So I do suggest that your budget kind of really, we need $50,000 because we lost $20,000 from our canceled event. We've seen a 5% decrease in just our general fundraising support that comes through on a monthly basis. That's left this gap. We're serving 50 extra families a month. That's, sort of more in the expense side. And so that you really have a hard number in terms of what you're looking to fundraise. So once you've got that mini case statement together, it's important to talk about ways for your donors to be able to support you. So one of the things that I'm recommending that nonprofits do is to really talk to those that have donor advised funds. So these are some of the statistics from the Giving Tuesday donor advised fund report, but there are almost 750,000, there should be an extra zero on there, sorry about that, donor advised fund accounts throughout the country that hold over $120 billion in assets. Gifts from donor advised funds outpace private foundation giving by 4 times. And in 2018, which was the last year numbers were available, donor advised funds paid out to qualifying charities over $20 billion, which was an 18% growth from 2017. So those numbers just really continue to grow sort of exponentially. 2018 was the first time they went over $20 billion. So, I mean, the important thing to think about with these funds is that the donors have already set aside this as their charitable checking account, if you will, right? So they've already put a couple $100,000 of their funds into this. It has to be used for a qualifying charity. So you're not really asking them for an out-of-pocket gift. So even though, the economy has taken a bit of a downturn, people's portfolios have taken a little bit of a hit, their businesses are suffering, kind of whatever that is, this money is still sitting there and still can be spent out. So it's important that you sort of target some of those folks that that have these. And a good way, just the Community Foundation has donor advised funds. Most of the bigger financial institutions like Charles Schwab, JP Morgan. So as when you get those checks from folks, that's a good way to flag those donors to know that they have a donor advised fund. And now is a good time to reach out to them to talk about, you normally give us $5,000 a year out of your donor advised fund. We're seeing unprecedented need this year, kind of whatever your story is, going back to that case for support. And then be able to talk about, is there a way that you would consider making an extra gift this year out of your donor advised fund? The next thing that I'm recommending is to sort of double down on monthly giving efforts. I mean, whether you have a program now that you can expand on or just start talking about more, or consider launching something, this is a really great way to generate the smaller gifts, sort of different from the donor advised funds. But I think as everyone in the nonprofit sector knows, all those little gifts certainly add up. So you know, maybe my finances have suffered a bit because of the economy. So I'm not able to give the big gift that I would normally write, but I could certainly consider sending you $20 a month, right? Which still turns out to $240 at the end of the day. So, you know, I think that that's an easy ask for a lot of donors, and a lot of the smaller nonprofits who maybe have donors who give, you know, less than $1,000 a year, and it generates, you know, a steady source of income, right? So you don't have to constantly worry about re-asking. It's just, you know, that credit card is getting charged every month, or they've got a donation set up through their own bank account that's coming. It can be very helpful. So if you don't have a plan already, it's important to think about developing that membership plan. So what does your recruitment strategy look like? I recommend targeting those donors who are giving consistently, but at lower levels. You know, so looking at your database in terms of, you know, who's given to us for the last 3 to 5 years consistently, you know, maybe at less than $250. You're going to want to think through the benefits and the recognition that are aligned with membership into the monthly giving program. You know, are they getting discounts to come to your fundraisers every year? Is there a special, you know, kind of meet and greet, something, even if it's virtual these days, you know, with the CEO? You know, are they listed in your annual report? Sort of how are you handling that? And then certainly the stewardship side. So making sure that, you know, kind of next year when you go back to ask for them to renew their monthly gift, that you're providing kind of an impact report and how the monthly giving program has benefited your organization. So just some things to think through on the strategy side there. Also thinking through how to re-strategize your events. So like a lot of organizations are switching to virtual, or at least considering it. So really thinking through what made your in-person event unique. You know, you can't just have your typical sort of chicken dinner, as I like to call them, over Zoom. So was there a component to your program that can translate itself onto the computer? So did you have really wonderful client stories that can be shared? Was there some sort of entertainment component that your donors are going to miss and want to see online? You know, is there sort of like artwork component, visual things that you can show? Is there a keynote speaker that you can bring in, folks, somebody that people would really want to hear from that would bring a draw? And, you know, thinking through how to maybe translate that into some sort of at-home component, right? So can you mail a couple of bottles of wine to their house in advance and do like a wine tasting component? Can you send you know, those food boxes, right? So that folks are kind of cooking along with you, or that, you know, or just even sending a goodie bag that maybe has some things in there from your sponsors that you would normally be handing them in person. So just an extra touch to make that a virtual event a little bit more successful. Now that the stay-at-home order has been lifted and, you know, social distancing is still in place, but we're allowed out of the house again, you know, some organizations are starting to think through how to maybe do something that's live and in person, but you can still maintain distance. So I know of a few organizations that are doing like drive-in events, for instance, where folks are staying in the cars in a parking lot, but they can still visually see some kind of programming. Can you consider small events? You know, would a donor or a board member host just a few couples in their home? It's summertime now. Can there be a picnic in the backyard with just a handful of people that has a much more intimate feel to it, that will make the donors feel more special, but still allows you to have some interaction in a different way that's off of Zoom and, you know, all these other platforms. Switching your auction over to an online, just simply asking for the donated cost of the ticket. You know, donors primarily come to your events because they love your mission and they want your organization to succeed. So I would never try to underestimate the donor's commitment to you in terms of still wanting to give you that $100 ticket fee, right? They still want you to be successful. They were still planning to give. You know, there's no reason that you shouldn't be asking for them to give that cost. Even I would say if you've completely canceled the event, to reach out and try to make that ask. And then the last kind of note about events is really just to rethink your value proposition and those benefits for donors. Those are going to look a little different, right? Because we're on the computer, so you're not going to have signage all over the place in the ballroom with your logos, with your sponsors' logos. So how else can you give them that same recognition virtually? You know, like I mentioned, mailing things to the donors' houses. Do you give a representative from the organization or the company an opportunity to speak for a few minutes during your program? Do you do all of your, your email blasts and social media, things like that? Is there a way that you can incorporate some messaging from their company as well as their branding? So just, and I would say the best way to do that is to, quite frankly, talk to your sponsors, especially your big ones. So you've been our presenting sponsor for this gala. We want to make sure that we're working with you in a way that the now virtual event is still really meaningful for you, still accomplishes your corporate goals. It should really be looked at as a partnership. So, as you're thinking through those strategies, the best thing to do is to really get on the phone with them. Certainly launching online campaigns. I mean, these have been much more successful in the last few months. It's a good way, sort of an emergency COVID specific appeal. So again, going back to your case for support about, what's new on the programming side, what issues have been exacerbated, what challenges are you facing, and to get something up on some sort of platform. There's a million of them. So, probably you're using some already. Even just Facebook campaigns and things like that can be very successful. One of the primary things I think, definitely makes those campaigns more successful is to find a matching donor. This is a great opportunity for maybe a corporate sponsor who was a part of an event that doesn't want to go that route, because either because the event was canceled and they can't, or just because maybe it's just not aligning with how they want to operate. So this is still a great opportunity for them to get a lot of recognition through that online giving campaign. And as you all know, with these campaigns, I mean, it helps leverage the support from individual donors, right? Because my $50 contribution is now turning into $100. I'm a little bit more inclined to support. The important thing I think too to remember about those campaigns is that you still need to be doing very targeted outreach, especially if your online campaign has a significant goal. People are not just going to find this online campaign and start making contributions that are going to add up to $50,000. You're still going to have to get on the phone and reach out to some major supporters, your corporate donors, and ask them, for to have a very personalized targeted ask, and then just instead of having them mail that check, ask them to get online and do it there. And a lot of these platforms also allow you to go in and to enter those checks. So if someone is giving, if they don't want to do a $10,000 gift on a credit card, right, they want to mail the check, you can still get in and have it show up on your thermometer. Using really engaging messages and videos especially is a good way to promote this, so that as you're talking about it on your social media channels, you've also got good content coming where you're showing smiling, happy faces, you're showing leadership talk about the programs. I really encourage videos. There's a reason that Snapchat and YouTube and all of those platforms are far outpacing the written ones. We're in a quick society. We like to look, we don't like to read. And it's also far more engaging, especially since we can't be meeting with donors face to face, right? They still want to be able to see your executive director, CEO, give a very heartfelt speech about, how the program is being affected and how their support is helping, just short little 30 to 60 second snippets. It doesn't have to be lengthy. And then just be mindful that you're constantly, keeping folks updated, whether the platform that you're using is doing that kind of automatically, or, you know, that you're continuing to email people to say, hey, you know, we're now at 50% of our goal, help us get to the end, you know, can you forward this message to 10 of your friends, those kinds of things. And then the last thing on various ways to support is just thinking through in-kind, you know, especially as we're starting to, some of you are maybe opening back up, thinking through how your summer programming is going to look. Is there a need for PPE? Again, you know, food has been a big challenge throughout the summer. Are you in need of cleaning supplies? You know, what sort of items can folks consider donating? Now is a good time to be recruiting board members and committee members. You know, I think that a lot of folks are finding themselves with a little bit of extra time on their hands now that they're at home working. So it's a good opportunity to try to engage them in your work in a different way. And the same thing goes for those pro bono services. You know, do you have a need that someone could help you with over the next 60 to 90 days while we're still likely to be working from home? That would have a meaningful impact, right? So is now a time to be updating your marketing materials? You know, is your leadership team going through maybe strategic planning or re-strategic planning because your service model has changed a bit? You know, is there a way to sort of evaluate maybe some new programs that you've had to launch, or, you know, we've transitioned our mentoring program online now. We need to get an evaluation of that so that we can continue to show some success and some benchmarks. And then obviously, I know that many of you probably still have a lot of need for volunteers, either in your current service model, just more of them, or maybe you're doing things in a different way. And there's folks that could be helpful there. So once we have kind of put together our case statement and our budget, we've really kind of thought through those various strategies on how we're asking our donors to support us. It's important to think through the ways that you're going to outreach to those donors. So the first thing is personal outreach. So this, as a professional fundraiser, is a really great time to transition your fundraising model to a very highly relationship model. You know, we have a lot of, especially smaller nonprofits, that really focus more on transactional giving. So it's buying a ticket to an event. It's giving a one-time contribution to something. It's really not based on a long-term one-on-one relationship with you as the fundraiser or with the organization. And I know that this is oftentimes because, especially again at smaller nonprofits, you know, you're wearing 17 different hats, you're running around doing a lot of stuff. It's hard to set aside time to make, you know, 20 phone calls a day to your donors or 20 calls a week. It's hard to carve out time to be going to have lunch and breakfast with folks. So this is a really great time to try to make that transition internally by creating, you know, thinking through about how to maybe create a major gift program that's more formalized moving forward, but certainly in the interim, just making sure that you're getting on the phone, that you're sending very personalized emails. You can still be setting up one-on-one, you know, coffee dates with donors via Zoom or FaceTime. You know, it's a good opportunity, I think, for nonprofits to think through how they can become much more personal in their outreach. Certainly increasing your social media, providing lots of program highlights. You know, again, your donors love you. They want to see your organization be successful and thrive. And what I heard very early on from a lot of corporate sponsors, especially, was, you know, I'm not really hearing from the nonprofit. I don't know what's going on there. So I think as long as you're, you know, you're providing a lot of really great updates on how you guys are surviving and making it through. Again, using videos is a really great way to use this. You know, messages from your CEO, from your board chair, from the development director, a recognizable face is always good to see and reassuring, and goes back to, you know, trust building and all of that. I think it's also really great to feature donors and volunteers, folks that are doing great things for your organization. because then that spurs somebody else to maybe think, well, gosh, that's something that I could probably do, or maybe I know somebody that I should be reaching out to. So make sure that you're doing that as well. And then the last thing on outreach is to, don't forget to leverage your board. They should be an ally for you during these challenging times. So assigning them a handful of thank you calls to make every week, asking them to still continue to make introductions for you. You can't really take your foot off the pedal in terms of meeting new people and getting introductions to new donors. So hopefully they are still able to assist you that way. And then just simple things like resharing your social media, right? If you guys launch an online giving campaign, your board members should be resharing that link on their Facebook page and encouraging their donors with, or their friends to say, I donate to this organization because of X, Y, and Z. It would be great if you would consider donating to. So the last thing that I'm just going to touch on here, and hopefully I haven't been rambling for too long, is to create an action plan. So, once you've got your message and what you're asking for down, you've thought through how you're going to, sort of what you're going to ask for and how you're going to outreach, is to really create a meaningful plan. So who are your audiences that you're going to touch? How will you get to them through the various tactics? What are you going to be asking for? Do you just need general operating support and unrestricted funds? Is there a specific COVID campaign? Again, those in-kind things. And then when will you reach out to them? Going back to kind of creating more of a personal and relationship-based fundraising model, is that you need to have regular, consistent contact and touch points through a variety of ways. So this is a quick sample of a suggested action plan. So so you're just going to want to identify your main audiences. And again, just a sample. So I just kind of threw in some here, but your board, major donors, whatever that means for your organization. I mean, if $500 is a major gift for you, then it's 500 and up. If you are at a larger organization, it's probably more like a $10,000 benchmark there, but whatever it means for you. All your other donors, your volunteers, non-donors, so just people that follow you on Facebook, people that are signed up for your e-newsletter but maybe aren't making gifts yet. Then to think through all of the tasks and the ways that you should be touching those folks. Obviously, the closer they are in terms of relationship, the more significant their contributions are, the much more personal those touch points need to be, and they should be from folks that are part of your leadership team, versus like an all donor kind of email blast. And then to, I did this in weeks just because I feel like we're reacting far more quickly these days, but this could certainly be something that you do longer term where you're building this out in terms of month, what you're gonna do, but then just to simply put check marks in all of those areas, right? So, next week we're gonna have the board chair make personal calls to all of the other board members, and we're gonna do a blog post from the CEO to everybody. Then the next week, we're gonna have the development director call all of our major donors, and we're gonna do some social media updates. So just, it'll be kind of scattered, but I find that when folks use something like this, it makes you have those regular consistent points. So it's not like we're doing a ton of activity in week 1 and 2, and then all of a sudden we're not talking to anyone or sharing our messaging for several weeks. And then we've got some other activities planned. It really keeps you focused and making sure that everything is very consistent, and that you're going across all of those audiences, right? So it's not like you forgot to, reach out to your major donors for the last month. It's a good visual way to see it. So that is it for my presentation. Do you guys have some questions that you want to ask about any of that, or just other things that are on your mind?
Do you want to switch back to turn off screen sharing so we can see everybody in case they do want to ask a question? Yep. There we go.
There we
Wonderful.
go.
I love the idea of the action plan. I always, make a to-do list, but I think having a spreadsheet where I can see, week 1, week 2, and then check things off is a really great idea. So thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions for Rachel? Some really great information that was shared. I don't see anything in the chat box. Let's see.
This is Patty Warner. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Thank you. This was a great presentation. It's
Thank
almost
you.
like back to basics,
Right.
Like start over and re-examine, but we have the benefit of what's worked well in our history.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, one of the things I've heard lately is in the middle of this, there is no such thing as best practices. And I totally disagree with that. I think you've really presented us with some wonderful back to basic best practices. One question I have, you had said that online is outpacing direct mail right now. Can you expand on that a little bit? I'm someone of kind of the older generation. I really believe in that, that hard emotional connection when you hold a letter, but I need to get away from that. I need to learn anew. So I'm, any advice you have for me in that realm is appreciated.
Yeah, so I apologize if I maybe misspoke, but I didn't mean to say that it was necessarily outpacing direct mail. It's just grown exponentially. So I haven't necessarily seen any data over the last couple of months to say, because of COVID, you should be transitioning to online instead of direct mail. I just know that folks that have launched online campaigns, that I have seen some pretty remarkable success, because I think it's far more immediate, right? So it allowed the nonprofits to get something up very quickly without having to, even just spend a week writing a letter, talking to the mail house, getting it printed, getting it in mailboxes. It was much more of an immediate reaction. So I think that's largely why folks had a lot of really great success there. But I do think just even over the last few years, right, the last decade, probably it's always been trending up. I still think that there's always a place in your fundraising program for physical pieces of paper to show up in the mail. We do know that those strategies are still really effective, especially with older generations who are reluctant to plug in their credit card number online. They still want to send in a check. So I wouldn't consider dropping it by any means, but I think that the social or the online component is a really great way to sort of marry those two strategies. So even if it's, we're doing a special COVID appeal, we've got a $50,000 goal, we're going to do this mass mailing, but then over the next month, we're going to have a lot of Facebook messages that align with the messaging from the direct mail piece. We're going to do a couple of follow-up e-blasts to donors. We're going to send some video messaging that aligns so that it's still the same, appeal, but you're reaching out to various audiences in different ways.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, yeah.
We had a question in the chat box from Meredith from the American Lung Association. The question is, do you have any fun, creative ideas for volunteers? It is difficult to engage them in familiar ways with a virtual event.
Yeah, so I think, it's, I don't know how you were physically using them, right? When they showed up and had things to do. I think that there's still, you might have a volunteer who has some really great expertise, maybe in sort of online stuff, right? That could help you with some messaging for an online campaign. Maybe you could get a couple of them to organize a special Zoom event where you could just have the volunteers all together and talking about ways that they think that they could help your organization. Putting them together into a room to just sort of brainstorm, I think would be really helpful and would give them a sense that they have a say in it, right? And instead of just you saying, these are 5 ways we think that we could use your assistance, they might have a lot of good ideas. I find that that volunteers are usually full of ideas, right? I mean, it tends to be the people that don't want to give it a lot of thought that write the check, but the volunteers want to get their hands a little dirty with you. So just trying to do something fun like that, you know, and I think that you can do fun little events for your, just for your volunteers too, right? You know, if you're with the Lung Association, I just heard that, I guess, but I was gonna, you know, if you're a children's organization, can they do arts and crafts with some kids, you know, virtually? You know, what are maybe some physical activities that you could do, right? Is there like a group walk we can all do together and we all post kind of our, you know, the GPS tracking from our Fitbits and things? You know, I think that really the first place to start is by asking them.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Our event has gone virtual for in the fall for October
Yeah.
4th, a little range around dates around there. And we're just trying to find ways that they can do something because I have people calling like, we want to help. And I think one of the big questions right now is, do we convert more participants or volunteers to participants? Since we're virtual, people can do things at home as opposed to like showing up at our location and moving boxes and unpacking things. So it's just a lot of trying to plan creative ways for them to get involved.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, even asking them to do their own like social media campaign for you or something, you know, to set up something that way, or, you know, is there a way that they can, you know, still help now that we've released, you know, some restrictions? I mean, can you still have 2 of them come in and help mail out t-shirts to everybody that's going to do the walk? And, you know, now I'm going to take my selfie in my t-shirt and post it, you know, those kinds of things. So I think that there's still some fun ways that you can get them involved. But yeah, it is going to look a little different because you can't have 50 volunteers show up on one day and, you know, and you don't have the day of stuff, right? They're not handing out water bottles and apples and things like that. They, you know, they've got to think through some different activities. So but yeah, I mean, also hopefully more of them will just participate because they can, you know, you don't need the day of assistance
as much. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for Rachel? Okay. If no one has any further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. We thank you so much, Rachel. I don't know if you have any concluding thoughts to share.
Yeah, I do. I just have one more final slide. I've got an event coming up that I thought I would share with you guys. Can you guys see that again?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So this is coming up at the end of the month. It is specifically about virtual events. So there's a couple of corporate folks speaking to give you the perspective of what sponsors are looking for, and then a couple of nonprofit representatives that will talk about kind of how they strategized and made the decision to make that pivot, and you know how they have been successfully securing sponsorships. So again, I will get like this flyer to Kelly so she can send it out to you guys. And then the last thing, or you can shoot me a note. This is my contact information if you guys want to get in touch directly with anything. And like I said, I will send this presentation to Kelly so she can distribute it, or certainly feel free to email me and I can get it to you directly.
Thank you.
And yes, that's the end of my.
We'll make sure to send out
Okay.
your contact information along with a link to the recording.
Great.
We do record this presentation for our members. So thank you so much, Rachel, for being here today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Like I said, if you need additional support from the Chamber, we are here to help you stay connected with your fellow members in the community during this time. So feel free to reach out to us for any questions, concerns that you may have. Before we officially end, I want to mention that our office is handing out the Oakland County PPE kits. Those contain gloves, a touchless thermometer, hand sanitizer, and sanitizing wipes that the county is providing to all businesses. We'll be handing those out tomorrow from our parking lot at the Adams Square building. So if your business is located in the 48009 zip code, those are free. Just come and pick one up. There's information in our social media about that. But if you want details, feel free to reach out to our staff. If you're not in the Birmingham zip code, you can reach out to your local municipality that your business is located in, and they will have your kit. I think the county is distributing those in various ways. So thank you again for joining us. If you have any further questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email us, reach out to us online. And like I said, please join us for future events. We're happy to assist you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks.